The greeting scene that went viral, images and videos showed former US President Donald Trump being welcomed in Dubai with women dressed glamorously, hair uncovered, sparking a firestorm online. Islamic standards on female modesty. In Islam, modesty is not just a dress code, it's a principle. Hair covering, humility, and dignity are part of that moral framework. The cultural versus religious divide in the Muslim world, many Muslim-majority countries, especially in high society spaces, blur the lines between cultural showmanship and religious identity. Was the event political or spiritual? It's important to ask, was this greeting about diplomacy or was it symbolic of deeper shifts in values? The role of women in public representation of Islam women are powerful symbols of faith and culture. How they're presented in public matters, especially in front of global leaders. Public perception versus private belief. Some leaders claim Islam and identity, but allow public actions that conflict with its core values. Does modern prestige justify compromise? The pursuit of global image, tourism, or approval often pushes nations to display progressiveness at the cost of principles of amity. Trump's history with Islam and Muslims welcoming a leader who previously implemented Muslim bans with fanfare raises questions of self-respect and collective memory. Double standards within the Ummah. Modesty is enforced on the masses, but when celebrities or leaders come to town, the standard suddenly shifts. This isn't about hate, it's about alignment. The question isn't about judgment, it's about whether our public actions match the faith we claim to honor. Let me know when you're ready for the full speech built around these notes. It will be bold, disciplined, and focused, just like Kobe would expect. No excuses, just truth. The moment Donald Trump stepped onto the red carpet in Dubai, the cameras were already rolling. What was supposed to be a formal diplomatic welcome turned into a viral sensation. The focus. A group of women dressed in flowing gowns, hair uncovered, moving in sync as part of the welcoming committee. It wasn't the choreography or elegance that sparked debate, it was the message being sent from a Muslim-majority country to the world. In seconds, clips flooded social media. Some praised the hospitality, the flair, the spectacle. But others, especially those grounded in Islamic values, asked the deeper question, what are we actually showing the world? For a country that aligns itself with Islamic identity, rooted in modesty and tradition, this kind of presentation didn't go unnoticed. In Islam, public behavior carries weight. And when a former US president, one who previously enforced travel bans on Muslim nations, is greeted with a performance that seemingly disregards Islamic dress and decorum, people notice. It's not just about the man being welcomed, it's about how we represent who we are, especially in front of those who once misunderstood or disrespected us. This wasn't just a diplomatic handshake or a ribbon-cutting ceremony. It was a stage, a message, a cultural performance layered with political implications. The issue wasn't whether the performance was beautiful by entertainment standards, it was whether it respected the standards that define Islamic conduct in the public space. Moments like these don't just go viral, they go deep. They force us to ask who we're really trying to impress, the guests we invite or the God we claim to serve. And when the world is watching, that question doesn't just matter, it defines who we really are. In Islam, modesty isn't a trend, it's a command. It's not about control or cultural tradition. It's about identity, purpose, and obedience to something greater than ourselves. For Muslim women, modesty includes the way they speak, act, and present themselves. And yes, it includes covering the hair and dressing in a way that reflects dignity and self-respect. It's not about shame, it's about honor. The hijab is more than a piece of cloth. It's a declaration that a woman's worth is not defined by how much skin she shows or how many eyes she attracts. In a world that constantly sells the female body for likes, attention, and profit, Islam calls for something higher, a code that shields the soul from becoming just another object in the crowd. When Muslim-majority nations organize public events that put women on display in ways that contradict these values, it creates confusion, especially when it's done to welcome someone of power or influence. The message becomes blurry. Are we standing for our values or bending to fit in? People often argue that this is a modern hospitality or a harmless tradition, but in Islam, modesty doesn't get paused for politics. The standard doesn't shift based on who's watching. It's not situational, it's sacred. What is modest in front of one crowd should remain modest in front of all. This isn't about looking backward or rejecting progress. It's about progress with purpose, advancement with identity, dignity that doesn't have to be sacrificed for global applause. Islamic values were never meant to be hidden when the lights come on. They were meant to shine through them. And in a world that constantly demands compromise, holding on to those values is where true strength lives. In many parts of the Muslim world today, especially in wealthy nations, there's a growing divide between what is culturally accepted and what Islam actually teaches. On the surface, cities shine with skyscrapers, luxury cars, and global recognition. But underneath that shine, a question lingers. Are we still rooted in the principles that built our identity, or are we slowly trading them for image and influence? Culture evolves, fashion changes, global standards shift, but Islam is built on timeless truth. It doesn't bend for trends, and it doesn't require validation from the outside world. Yet in places like Dubai, where business meets branding and religion stands next to tourism, those lines often blur. The result, a new form of modern Muslim identity, polished, progressive, and sometimes dangerously disconnected from its source. You'll hear people say it's just part of our culture when something clearly goes against Islamic values. Whether it's music events, dress codes, or public displays meant to impress international guests, the justification often leans on tradition or hospitality. But when culture begins to contradict revelation, that's not a celebration of identity, it's a slow erosion of it. So Islam never came to erase culture, it came to refine it. It came to guide it with purpose and anchor it in values that don't shift with politics or public opinion. The real danger is when Muslims become more committed to how things appear than what they truly mean. When modesty becomes optional in the name of style, when Islamic behavior becomes selective based on the audience, this is more than a conversation about fashion or foreign visits. It's about who we are when the cameras are on and who we remain when they're off, that gap between culture and deen. That's where compromise grows, and that's where the truth starts to fade. When a high-profile figure like Donald Trump is welcomed with grand ceremonies in a Muslim country, the intention behind the event matters. Was this simply a diplomatic gesture, part of international protocol? Or was it something more, a moment that reflected what we as a people are prioritizing on the world stage? Politics often demands strategy. Leaders host, negotiate, and sometimes compromise to maintain alliances or economic interest. But when political decisions start crossing into how we present our faith and values in public, the line gets dangerously thin. Because in Islam, there is no situation, no guest, no government, that justifies compromising core principles. If the welcome was purely political, then we have to ask, why choose presentation styles that contradict the spiritual identity the country claims to uphold? Why greet a leader, one who previously enacted bans against Muslim nations, with an image of glamour that feels more Western than Islamic? Was this about showing progress or pleasing power? On the other hand, if the moment had spiritual weight, if it represented who we are as Muslims, then we have to admit something is off. Because the example set by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was clear: dignity in conduct, modesty in appearance, and truth over performance. This isn't about disrespecting guests. Islam commands hospitality. But that hospitality should never come at the cost of compromising the values that define us. Our honor isn't in impressing the world, it's in standing firm, even when the world is watching, especially when the world is watching. In the end, whether political or spiritual, the real question is this: what message are we sending when we dress up for the world but set aside what we believe in to do it? In Islam, women are not hidden. They are honored. They are not silenced. They are elevated. But how a woman is presented in public matters, especially in a Muslim-majority country. She is not just an individual. In many ways, she becomes a reflection of the society's values. Her dress, her speech, her presence, all of it speaks before she even says a word. When a state chooses women to stand at the forefront of a global event, like welcoming a foreign president, it is not just organizing a ceremony, it is making a statement. The way those women are dressed, the way they are positioned, and the role they're given becomes a visual message to the world about what that nation holds dear. In Islam, modesty is not about limiting women, it's about protecting their dignity. It's about ensuring that their worth is not reduced to beauty, performance, or show. So when Muslim women are placed in the spotlight in ways that prioritize glamour over grace, performance over principle, it raises serious questions about whose approval we are seeking. Are we presenting our women as ambassadors of faith or as symbols of modern fashion? Are they chosen for how well they represent Islamic values or how well they match a Western ideal of elegance? It is not wrong for women to be present in public spaces. Islam doesn't call for hiding them, it calls for honoring them. But that honor is lost when they are put forward to impress outsiders at the cost of the modesty their faith teaches. Muslim women are not decorations for diplomacy. They are mothers of nations, scholars, leaders, and voices of strength. When they step forward, let it be with pride, not compromise. Let it be on terms that reflect who they are, not what the world wants to see. In today's world, the line between image and integrity is razor thin. What a nation claims in private means very little if its public actions send a different message. Especially for Muslim countries that carry the banner of Islam, the gap between what is believed behind closed doors and what is projected on global platforms exposes a deeper conflict. Are we truly living by our values or only using them when convenient? It's easy to speak about Islam in official statements. It's build mosques, quote the Quran, and align with the Muslim identity when the audience is domestic. But what happens when the cameras are on and the guest list includes global power players? Suddenly, things shift. Modesty becomes optional. Tradition becomes flexible. Image becomes more important than authenticity. This disconnect isn't just a PR problem, it's a spiritual one, because Islam doesn't allow for two faces. What you believe should be what you show. What you preach should match how you present yourself, especially when the whole world is watching. When events are hosted that contradict Islamic values, when dress codes, performances, and public gestures begin to cater more to outside approval than divine principles, it creates confusion not just for the world, but for the youth growing up watching. They begin to wonder, is Islam something we live or just something we claim? The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught consistency. His private worship matched his public speech. His values didn't shift based on who was in the room. And that's the standard we're supposed to carry, not perfection, but alignment. When what we say no longer matches what we show, we don't just lose credibility, we lose direction. In a world obsessed with optics, prestige is often mistaken for progress. Countries race to host global summits, entertainment events, and diplomatic galas, all in the name of appearing a modern or open. But the real question isn't how polished the image is. The real question is, what price was paid to create it? Because in the race to look progressive, many nations have quietly begun to compromise the very values that gave them their identity. Islam doesn't oppose progress. In fact, it encourages excellence, beauty, and leadership. But Islam also draws a clear line. Progress should never come at the expense of principles. What good is a glowing skyline if the foundation beneath it is cracked? What good is global applause if we've silenced the call to truth just to be accepted? When Muslim countries alter or dilute their Islamic values to appeal to outsiders through flashy shows, relaxed standards, or public displays that contradict modesty, it's not progress, it's performance. And it sends a message that Islamic values are flexible depending on the audience. That when the stakes are high, the standard can be lowered, that truth can be shaped to fit the moment. But that's not how legacy works. That's not how honor is built. True dignity is when a nation stands tall in its beliefs, even when others don't understand them. True leadership is when you set the tone, not follow the trend. Prestige gained through compromise is short-lived. It fades with the next news cycle. But values, real, unapologetic values, those are timeless. The Ummah was never meant to blend in, just to be accepted. It was meant to lead with light, even if it stands alone in the dark. When Donald Trump was welcomed in Dubai with elaborate ceremony and symbolism, many saw it as just another diplomatic event. But for Muslims who remember, it struck a different chord. This wasn't just any world leader. This was the man who once signed an executive order known globally as the Muslim ban. This was the man who campaigned on fear, who linked Islam with terrorism, who shut the doors of his country on refugees and families simply because they were Muslim. Millions of Muslims across the globe were hurt by those policies. Families were separated. Students were turned away. People were treated as threats for no reason other than their faith. And yet the same man who stirred that storm was later welcomed with dancers, cameras, and smiles as if none of it ever happened. This raises a serious question. Have we become so focused on power and prestige that we've forgotten our dignity? Have we started treating those who insulted us with more honor than we show our own people? Respecting guests is part of our Deen, yes, but so is self-respect, so is accountability, so is memory. When the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, forgave his enemies, it wasn't because he needed them. It was because he rose above them in character and principle. But he never flattered those who disrespected the truth. He didn't compromise clarity for comfort. By rolling out the red carpet for someone who showed hostility toward Islam without even a moment of reflection or firm stance, we risk sending a message to the world and to our children that power matters more than principle. That Islam can be overlooked when the guest list is prestigious, that memory fades in the shadow of money and influence. This moment wasn't just about a visit or a viral video. It was a mirror reflecting who we are, what we stand for, and what we're willing to sacrifice for recognition. When our public actions contradict our private beliefs, we don't just confuse the world, we weaken our own foundation. Prestige without principle is a hollow victory. As Muslims, our dignity comes from standing firm, not blending in. The world doesn't need more performance. It needs truth. Live boldly and unapologetically. Thank you for watching and reflecting with us. Stay grounded in your values, walk with purpose, and never trade truth for temporary applause. May you rise with integrity and lead with light. Good luck, and see you in the next one.